Hello to our friends watching on YouTube, wherever you may be watching in the United States or anywhere in the world. We appreciate you being here. We will be joined by Sam Yarnell during this show, get his thoughts on the state of college sports, which is just a mess. The latest rulings coming down, we'll get his thoughts on those and how it affects the entire dynamic, not just of college sports, but of sports in general. A lot involving Lane Kiffin. We'll get to that coming up a little later on. Also, some thoughts on the PGA Tour, because Brian Rolap, who's running the PGA Tour, had some interesting comments as it relates to the tour and the future of the PGA Tour as it relates to LIV golfers who may ultimately be looking to come back as the LIV Golf thing starts to fall apart. So we'll get to that. Andrew Brandt used to be the vice president of the Green Bay Packers. Now he's a talking head on football, talks about the business of football, the business of sports. He's got a great book out called Smarter About Sports. I had the chance to sit down with him for a lengthy interview yesterday. We will have that coming up for you on today's show. The entire interview will be available on our YouTube channel because there was just so much that we couldn't possibly fit it in, even into 3 segments today on the show. A lot of football talk on the program today. But we get things started as we always do on this Tuesday edition of the show. It's time for the big story. And the big story is presented by the World Series of Golf.
Golf, poker, one champion, the World Series of Golf. Every shot is a bet. Every hole is a hand. Anyone can win. Play for a shot at $250K. Register today at WSG.golf.
And the World Series of Golf holding satellite series events this weekend at 30 different locations in 11 states around the country. All you gotta do is scan the QR code on your screen and go reserve your spot. Download the app. It is fantastic. It's going to be a blast. A lot of cool guys taking part in that World Series of Golf Satellite Series. You could be a part of it. They only have 128 spots open. If you want to be involved, and you'll get a great discount when you use my promo code SportsWrap. So make sure to go and sign up for the World Series of Golf. All right. I'll talk about this because on a lot of your national sports networks, your ESPNs, your Fox Sports, your NBC Sports, they're going to tap dance around this story. And this is why independent sports media, why independent media in general is so important. See, I don't have to answer to the NFL. I don't have to watch what I say because the NFL might come after me. I don't have to do any of that. And that's part of the reason why 3 years ago, I decided to move into the independent space and stopped working for all these corporate brands that I worked for. Not that I didn't love the people there, not that I didn't love some of my colleagues there, none of that. Just because I knew I was going to be muzzled to a degree about what it is I wanted to say. And when it comes to the issue of CTE, the NFL doesn't want their partners talking about it. And now it's not just in bed with ESPN, it's moved into the whole house. They've moved in furniture, they're commingling, they got their kids all together. That's not going to work for the NFL if ESPN really wants to dig into this subject. So watch the national shows and tell me how much they talk about it in between fantasy football and the latest DraftKings promo. I want to talk about this new study that came out. And if you haven't seen it, here it is. New study, British Medicine Journal, I believe it is, from Boston University, which now shows 25%, 1 in 4 deceased NFL players in a very short period of time, like a 5 or 6 year span, all diagnosed with CTE after death. I mean, think about that for a second. I mean, and this is across all positions, all eras. 1,712 former players who died. So I'm sorry, I make sure I have the dates right. Between 2008 and 2021. 338 donated their brains. Average age at death, 70. And they only had to play 5 years in the league. Now think about that for a second. And I want to talk to parents of kids today. The children, yes. want to talk to you about NFL players because we've gone down this road. And NFL players have decided it's worth the risk. Guys going to play big-time college football, they've decided it is worth the risk. The millions you can make, even if you're not able to use them because by the age of 50, you can't remember where you put your car keys. They want to take the risk. Go ahead and do it. You know the risks now. You know the possible outcomes. You choose to do it. It's on you. My sympathy quotient is 0 for the guys going into college and the NFL who are grown adults making decisions about what happens to their brains. Where I do have a problem with this, and where we have to have this conversation, is about kids. And if you are a parent watching this show today, you have got to start taking this more seriously. Because while the NFL and the collegiate ranks may have all different ways of trying to protect their players, by the time they get there, it may not matter because of all the brain trauma these guys have had as teenagers, playing high school football, even youth football. This cannot continue to be something that we ignore as a society. We can't do it. Somebody's got to stand up and speak out and say, the sport's not safe. No matter how much you try to make it safe, and I'm not saying the NFL hasn't tried and college football hasn't tried, it's not safe. Think about it before you enroll your kids in football, especially if they're on the smaller side. I'm done. That's the big story. We're coming back to talk about college football. Sam Yarnell will be here. Lane Kiffin in the news. We'll get to it next. Welcome back to the show. Let's talk some college football with our friend Sam Yarnell. Well, Sam, you and I haven't done a ton of college football. We have Bill Bender who comes on and joins us on Mondays. Week 0 coming up. Probably the most eyeballs North Carolina will have on it this entire season. Because after they get bludgeoned by TCU, who will need to watch them again? So let me get your thoughts on a few things. A lot of it involving the SEC, of course. Lane Kiffin said something, and my initial reaction after I kind of sat in it for a little while is different than my reaction now, which is his idea of, hey, man, somebody's in the portal, even at this late stage of the game, it's us or them is basically the mentality that he is, or the attitude that he's exuded on this. And at first you're like, yeah, that's Lane Kiffin, just, bloodthirsty, whatever it takes to win, that sort of mentality. But then you go, he's kind of right, because if it isn't them going and getting these guys that are in the portal, somebody else is going to go and do it.
Yeah, college football has become the Wild West.
Yeah, we know that.
Over the past 48 hours. Not that it wasn't already, but it's just gotten exponentially worse, it seems, in the last 2 days, which is crazy. It's interesting because it plays into kind of this greater conversation about sports, right? Everything that's going on in college football right now, whether it be the Lane Kiffin stuff, whether it be the, dozen at this point guys who have been on professional rosters across different sports that are going to go back and try to play in college this year. It all kind of draws back to this same thing that a point I actually heard somebody make on a podcast last week. In the midst of all of the Mark Walters selling the Lakers, selling Chelsea, I mean, let's be honest, at this point, probably allegedly going to sell a large portion of the Los Angeles Dodgers and activate a key man clause in Shohei Ohtani's contract. It all draws back to this one thing of we are as an American society losing grasp on sport as a whole, on something that has been so incremental in our growth as a society, or implemental in, us being what we are today. we're losing that grasp, right? You not only have everybody, all of these investigations and all of these sales, you have private equity coming into everything. And we thought it was just professional sports with the Yankees selling to private equity last week. But now you've got private equity moving into all of these colleges and private equity funding all this NIL stuff. The thing is, we've given so much freedom to what these sports can do that we're now that far from losing grasp of it. And it's getting to this uncontrolled point where college football is about to be completely different by the end of next year as it was 2 years ago. It is a sport that is changing way quicker than it was ever prepared to handle, Jason. And yeah, we have to do some serious reflecting as an American society about, is this really what we want sports to be, what we've let college sports and professional sports across the country become?
Sam, you sound so jaded. I'm listening to you right now. You do. For somebody your age, and this is not, I really don't mean it this way. You're supposed to get to my age and feel that way. Not half of my age and feel that way. Like that's sending off alarm bells to me that you sound so disenfranchised with what you're watching. Like the only thing that didn't come out of your mouth is, today's my last day doing the show. I'm going to go focus on working for a nonprofit. Like that was the only thing missing from what you just said was, Jason, I'm leaving. I'm going to work for the United Way. Like, because other than that, that was basically the whole speech you just gave me.
Listen, America as a country,
here we
right?
go again. America starts with America.
Yeah, sure. Here we go again. But let me bring it back here. We're a place that is driven, maybe more so than anywhere in the world, by finance, by monetary desire, right? And the really sad part about all of this is that, like, sports for so long, and maybe this is why I'm so jaded, because it's been so much of my sports loving life, and the same is not the case for you, but like sports for so long in American culture was the reprieve from all of that, and where everybody went to not worry about like the hustle and bustle of America. But then all these business people figured out that you could just turn sports into business too. And, one thing led to another, and now Here we are. It's just the everything that is going on in college sports, especially over the last 2 days, if it has not told you, the everyday fan, that, oh my goodness, the amount of crazy private money that is coming into literally every sports team that you love from every single different angle has just gotten a little too far. All this money's gotten it so NFL players are going to be playing in the SEC this year.
You could sell an Eeyore Topps Chrome 2024 1-of-1 card for $80,000. I mean, it's seeped into everything. But I'm honestly taken aback by just how down you are on all. I'm serious. Like I'm
not down. It's not.
You
I'm
sound
not sitting
down.
Here and saying that. I'm not sitting here and saying that this is going to lead to the demise of American society somehow. It just feels like we probably should do something about this before.
But we're not. But we're not. Right. We've already crossed that point, I think, of no return. There's no getting back into it. I was talking about this yesterday with Andrew Brandt, and we'll have my conversation with him coming up with private equity getting into sports. We were saying, could there ever be anything like the Packers again? And he's like, no, there could never be anything like the Packers again. And I was asking him, if he would ever want to be, if anybody could convince him to come back and be a VP of football operation. And he's like, no, I wouldn't go back to that lifestyle and that sort of thing. But it just fascinates me to hear it coming from somebody your age. By the way, the most Lane Kiffin story out of all of this from college football yesterday was the bug sweep of the Ole Miss offices after he leaves. I mean, and again, this is the guy you hired, LSU, and this is the guy that, all these steps of the way that people have hired Lane Kiffin, they had to go and sweep the office for bugs. I mean, if that doesn't tell you all you need to know about Lane Kiffin and the guy that LSU went and threw the bag at, Tells you all you need to know. Last 30 seconds, Sam.
What, like he wasn't tidy? Like there were cockroaches and
No,
ants
like,
that were
but no.
I'm kidding. That was good, though. I had you there for a second.
You did. Like I said.
College football rocks. If you're not bugging, you're not trying. That's my comments on the matter.
Sam Yarnell, ladies and gentlemen. He may or may not be here tomorrow. I don't know. We're coming back. Andrew Brandt, former Packers VP, joins us next. Welcome back to the show. Let's talk some football with Andrew Brandt. I had the chance to sit down with him for a lengthy conversation yesterday about his new book, Smarter About Sports. He is the former vice president of the Green Bay Packers. Was there for about a decade. Drafted Aaron Rodgers. He's been an NFL business insider, a sports business insider. He teaches at a university. There isn't anything he hasn't done. So I wanted to pick his brain on the book, some of the anecdotes, some of the interesting stories from it, as well as talk about some of the current issues around the NFL. So I was thrilled when we had an opportunity to connect with Andrew Brandt, and I wanted to get his thoughts and find out. I always ask this of authors when we get them on the show. I wanted to know from Andrew, what was the impetus for writing this book?
Yeah, it's always good to be with you, Jason, and thanks for having me. The book is a culmination, cornerstone, I guess, of 15 years since I left the Packers, really trying to, I guess, in the shortest phrase, make people smarter about sports. As people may know, I've been doing it through teaching. I've been doing it through podcasts. I've been doing it through writing, through columns at National Football Post, at ESPN, at Sports Illustrated, doing it through broadcast media at ESPN and other places, and of course, doing it through social media where a lot of people follow me to get the insights. But I never wrote a book. And Jason, I always resisted. I'm writing so much. I got a full-time job as a law professor. I don't have time to write a book. But at some point, I think the resistance I'm talking about just overcame by the need to get this stuff down, the need to teach people what really goes on in the inner workings of sports through stories that only I can tell. And there have been agent books. Drew Rosenhaus wrote a book. Scott Boras wrote a book. There have been team exec books. Bill Polian, Amy Trask, there's a bunch of them. There have been media books about ESPN. There have been academic books. There have been NIL books even. I got all that. So it's all in one place. Smarter About Sports. So again, like in the foreword, what Mike Tirica told me at ESPN, you make us smarter. And that's what I've been trying to do. So I just kind of encapsulate it all in a work that hopefully makes people smarter about sports.
I want to start with an anecdote that you give in this book talking about Ricky Williams, because I want to go back to your agent days a little bit.
Yeah.
Because maybe this is what got you out of the agent days. I don't know. But that he was leaving your agency for Master P, but suggesting, you come work for Master P with him. How much of the need to get away from being an agent had to do with maybe the lack of control that sometimes agents have? And I'm curious to get your thoughts on that.
I'll first say to people listening, and I'm sure there are those listening that want to be agents, I stop them in their tracks right away. I say, okay, you want to be an agent? Role play right now. You're an agent, right? I dub you an agent. I'm a player. Why would I sign with you? Why would I sign with you? And they better have a good answer to that question. And the agent world is a great world. You get a lot of highs, you get a lot of lows. You sign a big client, but then you lose a big client. You sign a big contract, you may lose a big contract. Ricky was the culmination of my agent life where I got a watershed client that was going to be a top 5 pick. I had him for the first year when he was a junior, and he's like, I'm going to go back to Austin. I'm like, oh, geez, okay. A whole nother year of going down to Austin, protecting the asset, which I did. He won the Heisman and everything, and we're into the pre-draft process. And like you said, I saw people hanging around him. I'm like, what's up? He says, these guys work for Master P. I'm like, who's Master P? He says he's a rapper and he's an entertainment mogul and he's starting a sports agency and I'm going to be his guy. And I'm like, what about me? He said, well, I want you. I don't like your firm. I like you. I want you to go with Master P. I'm like, me and P? He said, yeah. I said, I don't know about that. And I was thinking about it. I was telling my wife I'm going to work for Master P. I had other clients, but no one to the magnitude of Ricky Williams. So I was going to hang on. And I was thinking of like getting out, but I don't. And this is where serendipity and closed doors and sliding doors, Jason, the exact same time, within a day or two, the Green Bay Packers are calling me. I had some clients over the years, but I only had one, a third string quarterback named Matt Hasselbeck. And I'm like, what's going on? And he said, I can't talk about Hasselbeck. I'm dealing with Ricky Williams and Master P. And they're like, we're not calling about Hasselbeck.
It was Ron Wolf, right?
Ron Wolf, our coach, Mike Holmgren, just went to Seattle. He took the guy who ran the business operation with him to Seattle, and I'm still not getting it. I'm like, okay. And he says, how'd you like to switch sides? As simple as that. And I said, Green Bay? Yeah. And I come up there and I talk to him and I interview, and I'm like, let me ask you a direct and honest question. Do I have to actually move here to do this job? And Ron is incredibly direct. He said, I am not offended, but yes. And that was the beginning of a decade in Green Bay. And yes, if Green Bay didn't come up, I'd somehow try to stay with Ricky Williams. But then I realized when you represent a top guy, I'm not talking about an average player, a top guy, you're always on the line. Yeah, he would have fired me a month later, a year later, or 2 years later, and he had many agents through his career. It's just a rough life, especially if you have a family. At that time, I had a young family. So, yeah, I moved on. I did that 2 times. People read the book. I went from labor players to management, first with something called the Barcelona Dragons, then with the Packers.
Could we ever see anything like the Packers set up again? This publicly owned, this publicly owned team I don't think the dynamics exist anymore. Now you're seeing private equity get into team ownership. Could we ever see anything like the Packers again?
It's hard to know. And even as someone who's studied for 10 years there, I still don't understand it. Like 1922 and the Acme Packers and somehow grandfathered into the NFL and community owned. Yeah, we'll never see that. And just think about it. I still think about it to this day. And it's the name of my chapter on that is The Greatest Story in Sports. Like, it is a small Midwestern town that has an NFL team. Like, think of any think of Rockford, Illinois. Think of Duluth, Minnesota. Think of, anything. And quick story again, David Baker, chairman of the Arena League, comes in and says, hey, we're putting arena leagues in different cities. I'm like, great. Indoor spring football. I'm like, great, it works. And he says, listen, it's not going to be Arena League. I'm like, what? It's going to be Arena 2. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you're not big enough for Arena. Green Bay's not big enough for Arena. I said, no, we're not doing Arena 2. If we're big enough for the NFL, I think we're big enough for the Arena League.
That is amazing. Don't touch that dial. More with Andrew Brandt in 4 minutes. Welcome back to the show. More of my conversation now with Andrew Brandt. Smarter About Sports is the name of the book. Former Packers vice president. And as I said, to start this conversation last segment, he was the man responsible for bringing Aaron Rodgers to Green Bay. And that brought a Super Bowl. So I wanted to ask him his thoughts on Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, and a whole bunch more. Andrew Brandt is our guest on the show. Smarter About Sports is the book. Yeah. I want to get your thoughts. Stick with Green Bay, the Green Bay story here for a second, because you're obviously one of the people involved with bringing Aaron Rodgers into the league, and you tell some great stories about how his time in Green Bay sort of played out. But I want to know from you, in sort of tying this into the news of where we are in 2026 with him, one, the fact that he's still playing, but two, trying to reconcile the Aaron Rodgers you knew during your time in Green Bay with the Aaron Rodgers that we see now. How much of it is him, if you want to use the word evolving, some might want to use different words, but using the word evolving to just influence and things around him and life lived to the Aaron Rodgers that we see today?
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point there. The Aaron Rodgers I knew, I mean, I stayed in touch with him after, but I knew primarily 2005 to 2008, 9, was a young guy, was a backup quarterback, and was, a young guy. He was dating a local Green Bay girl. Then he started dating movie stars and starlets. And he was always smart, honest, low key, wry sense of humor. He became a favorite of a lot of us in the front office right away just by his presence. People would call it cockiness. I really thought it was just confidence. It was just being true to himself. And I think that's continued. Everyone can talk about what he says or who he says, but that's continued. And the one thing beyond Aaron that I talk about in sports a lot, and I always tweet about it, is greater talent equals greater tolerance. Like, could a lot of players say the things that Aaron Rodgers has said the past few years? No, of course not. Could a lot of players have just shown up in June the past 2 years? No. I mean, the Steelers both years kind of left the light on for him. Yeah, take your time. We don't care about the draft. We don't care about free agency. We don't care about developing a young quarterback. Just come back. And that's just a bigger issue in sports and life and business. Like, you have that talent, you're going to have tolerance. But to some people's disappointment, Jason, I am extremely positive in the book about Aaron and about Brett. And I think sometimes when people see books, they're like, oh, they're going to be a takedown. They're going to say, no, these are good people in my experience. And I talk about the effect they've had on young people around Wisconsin, but throughout I always looked at the afterglow when there are interactions between Brett or Aaron with young people, especially disabled. And the player would leave, and I would just stare at the family and just watch what I call the afterglow. Like, those are moments only superstars like that can give, and some people give them half-heartedly, and I never saw that. But one thing I will mention, everyone focuses on the draft, and I give a whole chapter on that draft, but no one really focuses on after the draft. So 3 years. 3 years you're putting Northern California cool in a room with country Mississippi. And Brett wasn't happy about that, of course. And you have to manage that. No other walk of life would these two people be sitting in a room together. Like, if they were engineers or business.
Right.
Like, I'm like, okay, me, John Schneider, we all had to manage that. Like, Brett's side calling and saying, hey, you know what it's like to come into work every day and sit with your replacement? It sucks. And Aaron's camp would be like, Brett's never going to retire. What are we doing here? Are you going to trade him or what? So this is what I get into the book. People turn away after the big moments, but if you're working in sports, you're managing interpersonal relationships and insecurities and ego and development of team and concepts. That's really the job.
You were with the Packers when Favre learned that his father had died. And we all remember that extraordinary Monday night game in Oakland. What did you see inside the team maybe that the television audience could not have possibly understood?
Well, Bus Cook, his agent, called me and called on the hotel phone, and then because I couldn't reach and he was just like, where's Brett? He's usually a jovial guy, and he was obviously concerned in his voice. I'm like, what's up? And he said, Herb died. And Favre was around the team a lot. He was more than a father. He was kind of a mainstay fixture around the team. And we had to find Brett. Finally found him on the golf course. This was an off day before a Monday night game. And told him. And as you said, Jason, he came back and immediately met the GM, the coach. I was around. And before he got any words out about his dad, he said, I'm going to play. I'm going to play. He'd want me to play. And then he carried that same message in the team meeting that night, that Sunday night. And I can tell you, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. It was unbelievable. And then as everyone saw, of course, balls dropped from the sky into our receivers' arms on that Monday night. And Madden, I detailed the close relationship between Madden and Favre in the book, was going nuts. And it happened. And I'm not a religious person, but there was something going on that night. And he went to Mississippi. We went back to the Green Bay, but then we chartered a plane for a bunch of us to go down to the funeral. And I talk about seeing Brett in a different light. You know, he was not a superstar quarterback. He was more, I'm a son, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a community member. He didn't speak at the funeral, but his brothers did. It was really something to see Brett Favre as just a Hattiesburg, Mississippi community member. So that was a memorable time.
We'll get to some of the big stories around the league with Andrew Brandt next. More of my conversation with Andrew Brandt, the author of Smarter About Sports, the former Packers vice president, NFL business insider, joining me on today's show. I had a chance to catch up with him yesterday for a lengthy conversation. And I wanted to get his thoughts on how the NFL teams, the media, new sports networks, how they navigate this new world of media that we're involved in.
I don't know. I mean, again, I've never been a quote unquote reporter.
Yeah.
Never wanted to be. I'm a commentator.
But have you been on the side of it from the perspective of saying to a group of reporters or trusted reporters within a team, hey, we need you to hold on this. We need you to hold back on this?
Yeah, I would say no. I've been on the side where I call reporters after a story, especially in my lane, business, contract cap, stuff like that.
Sure.
You know, off the record, you didn't get this right. You know, obviously you're getting it from the agent, but you didn't get it right, and sort of give them an education. But I understand what you're talking about. This is the tenuous relationship in covering a sport and a team. You need to, for business, for life, to have a good relationship. And if you piss off a team, owner, executive, general manager, coach, you may feel good for the moment. You get a lot of props in social media, but long term may not be good. So I feel for reporters that get criticized about not covering something, because it's long term versus short term. Short term, you'll get a great bump. Look what they broke. Look at this. But long term may not be good for you.
Does the national insider business need to be reformed? You know, does the Diana Rossini stuff, and you know, and I've, in full transparency, I've known Diana for a zillion years.
Yeah.
You know, and she and I have talked, you know, privately about some of this stuff that's gone on with her and Mike Vrabel and what happened and what didn't happen and all of that. But does it call to attention the need, whether it's because some of these national insiders are too close, whether they're just mouthpieces for certain organizations in certain situations, does the whole thing need to be sort of blown up and reformed?
Yes, but I don't know how. You know, and I guess the question would be to look to other areas. In politics, does this happen? In business, does this happen? In tech, does this happen? You know, relationships are key to information, and it seems like, how do you fix that? Like, again, my area, you know, I look in the news and I see so-and-so signed for X, and I'm like, no, he didn't. But the agent is incentivized for presenting it in the best possible light, and the media insider is incentivized to help the agent so he or she gets those agent scoops. You bring up a great question, and like a lot of things in life, yeah, it's we know what's wrong with it. The problem is how to fix it.
Yeah, the ethics around it, and who's going to be the person or group or institution that sort of changes that. In the last couple of minutes that I have you, couple of things also currently in the news. You know, we've seen Fernando Mendoza here in the early going. Your impressions of what we've seen from him early on, the character behind him, and sort of bringing that into a Raiders organization that desperately needs that sort of character, and how you think that plays out long term, just based on the sampling we've had from him at Indiana and what we've seen early on.
First couple of things. Number one, Kirk Cousins and Fernando Mendoza are the two unlikeliest residents of Las Vegas in history. Like, oh my God.
I live here. Trust me, I know.
Oh my God, yeah. And this associating the strip or anything like that with those guys is just antithetical. But I am not a scout, but I will say this. Every year, a team is saying about a first round quarterback or second round quarterback, we're going to bring him along slowly. We're going to let the incumbent, go a long time. Never happens. Never happens. And unless you're Green Bay Packers, it never happens. And obviously, I saw it happen with the Packers 3 years and then happen again 15 years later with Love. Mendoza will be playing, if not by September, by October, by November. Of course he will, because teams have no patience for that anymore, except the Packers. There's no way Mendoza is not playing early in the season, in my mind. And he may even start the season. But yeah, it's like if you have this incredible asset in the first round quarterback, what's your incentive to wait? Like, you're paying a lot of money. You're getting the best value in sports, which is a rookie contract quarterback. Go for it, because he's going to have growing pains. Whether he has growing pains now or later, it's going to have growing pains. So in my mind, there's always a charade about playing the old guy, and it doesn't last for long. Now, obviously, you can get hurt, and Kirk Cousins is a great insurance policy, but we'll see.
Last one. Is there any way Deshaun Watson could be on the Browns roster come week 1?
Absolutely, he'll be on the Browns roster because, as I talked about, it's the strongest contract in the history of sports. It has been pushed out and pushed out and pushed out in terms of cap. His dead money charge right now is $120 million. I don't know if he'll start, but there's no way he's not on the team because he's uncuttable and untradeable. And yes, it's the worst contract in NFL history, even besting a couple recent ones in Tua and Kyler Murray. So he'll be there, whether he's playing or not, but he'll be there.
What a disaster for that organization to have to navigate that. Andrew Brandt, I could do this for like another half hour. I really appreciate you coming on with us. The book is Smarter About Sports. Andrew Brandt is the author. He could add that to his list of accolades now as well. I hope we get to do this again. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Again, Amazon is the best way to buy it, but there is a smarteraboutsports.com where you can get it as well. So I appreciate everyone buying it. I think you'll really enjoy it.
I certainly did. Thank you again.
Thanks, Jason.
Welcome back to the show. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Tuesday. Tomorrow on the show, a busy one. David Ardsma will be here, former big league reliever and closer, as SportsWrap goes inside baseball. Get his thoughts on some of these wild card races that are tightening up. Has Giancarlo Stanton played his final game as a New York Yankee at this point? That makes me sad to say. I wanted to see him get to 500 home runs as a Yankee, but the injuries just keep piling up. We'll get into a whole bunch of baseball with David. Our friend Andrew Marchand, who was supposed to be here on the show last week, he will be here tomorrow. He has told me he is coming on. Andrew Marchand of The Athletic on the show tomorrow to talk about all things media and sports, the Tony Romo situation, anything else we could possibly talk about with Andrew Marchand. We'll get into it on tomorrow's show. A couple of reminders before we get going here. The podcast, the SportsWrap with Jason Page podcast, Monday through Friday, available wherever you get your podcasts. The audio version of this show available. 45 minutes, limited commercial interruptions. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon. Anywhere you get a podcast, go and check it out. Subscribe today. The SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube channel is the place to find all things SportsWrap with Jason Page on the video side. The TV version of the show, 45 minutes, commercial free, waiting there for you like a good friend. Go and check it out. We've also got SportsWrap Originals, extended conversations like the one we had with Andrew Brandt, former vice president of the Packers and now NFL business sports insider. He's got a great new book, Smarter About Sports, that is out. We talked about it with him on the show today. You can see that entire conversation, which is almost a half hour long, on the YouTube channel, I should say. So go and check that out as well. The SportsWrap with Jason Page website is off and running. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to go and check it out. SportsWrap.tv. That's SportsWrap.tv is the place to go for it. SportsWrap.tv has everything I just mentioned, plus the Substack daily newsletter, the Daily Wrap. If you haven't subscribed to it, you can do it at SportsWrap.tv. It's also got a place where you can send us comments, criticisms, likes, dislikes, love and hate. We take all of it at SportsWrap.tv. Again, SportsWrap.tv is the place to go. And without any further delay on this Tuesday edition of the show, only one thing left to do. It's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, and Jed York seen here saying, "Draw me like one of your French girls," as opposed to being seen here saying, "Please, nobody release this photo of me in an Ohio jail, even if it was just for a day," because he decided to solicit a prostitute. Yes, a man worth somewhere between $100 million and $500 million. Does it really matter when you start talking about 9 figures and what you're worth? Probably not. But Jed York decided he was going to go and solicit a prostitute for, I believe, $140. Maybe it was $130. Again, when you're worth $100 million, does it really matter? You might be saying, why was he doing this in Ohio? He's Jed York. He's the owner of the San Francisco 49ers. Well, the reason is simple. He's actually from Ohio. So Jed York soliciting a prostitute gets arrested. They plea it down, do all this fancy stuff so that he only has to go to jail for 24 hours, something to that effect. They suspended the second day. He was supposed to get like 2 days in jail. He winds up getting 1. Whatever it is. I am very interested to see how the NFL and Roger Goodell treat this. Because we've seen how they come down on owners. The late Jim Irsay, who got an enormous fine from the league for some things that he shouldn't have been doing. And rest in peace, Jim Irsay, obviously. But in the case of Jed York, what does Roger Goodell do? How heavy does he come down? I mean, it's a misdemeanor. It's a slap on the wrist legally. But does the NFL want to make a case, make a statement about this sort of behavior? Remember the whole thing that happened with Robert Kraft, by the way? Which, of course, he didn't wind up getting charged, but we all know what happened with Robert Kraft. There wasn't obviously much from the NFL on that. I'll be curious to see what they do with Jed York. I can't get enough of that photo. I cannot get enough of that photo of that man worth between $100 million and $500 million just sitting. Hey, we know he's about 5'9". Odds and ends. Brian Rolap, the CEO of the PGA Tour, announcing a new setup beginning in 2028 for the Tour Championship. Match play. Give me this. Inject it into my veins. I love it. Fantastic news from the PGA Tour. The only shame is we have another year of the regular Tour Championship, which will be next year in Atlanta. But it's going to be a 2-week-long event for the Tour Championship match play. 32 best players after they winnow down the field. I can't wait. The other interesting thing that Brian Rolap said, though, is there's currently no plans on welcoming back any LIV Golf guys that decide to try and make their way back to the PGA Tour, with LIV Golf having all sorts of issues. So, Jon Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau, Dustin Johnson, take note. Brian Rolap and those guys at the PGA Tour say, we don't need you. At least right now. They're saying, we don't need you. Hey, but Bryson DeChambeau, you can go be the greatest YouTube golfer in the history of the world. Maybe you can launch a YouTube tour. Maybe there could be a YouTube golf tour. They got enough money. Yeah, maybe YouTube can rescue LIV. Oh, gosh. I don't think that's going to happen. We're out of time. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday edition of the show. We'll see you tomorrow when we're joined by Andrew Marchand and David Aardsma. Until then, I'm Jason Page. Don't forget, SportsWrap.tv. We'll see you all back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.